Hello students and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Sri Gyan Mantri Vidyapeeth for the students of Standard 10, in which we are learning the subject of social science. Students, from today onwards we are going to start with a new chapter in social, that is chapter number 21. Name of the chapter is Social Changes. Now we have three stages as far as the society of India is concerned, for the sake of learning only. Otherwise, we don't have those stages. But if we are going to learn the social changes that are happening, then the changes happen when there were some other things prevalent in the earlier times, and today there is something else. So, some history of the society must be different, and it has changed, and that is what we have. So we can say the pre-independence era, uh, 50 years, 40, 50 years after the independence, we got when we got the independence, and then actually we started developing a lot after independence, and then today where we are, 2020, right, 2020. So these are the three facts that we have to bear in mind, we have to keep in mind when we are talking about the social changes. So let us see the social changes in Indian society. Now, what is the meaning of a social change? That is the first thing that we have to understand when we are talking about change, and that also social change. Now, what is the meaning of social change? The change that occurs over time in the social order of a society is called social change. Now, that is exactly the meaning. The change that comes over in the society. So, that is the meaning of social change. That means over a period of time, some changes take place in the society, that is called social change, or in the social order. Right? We have learned that right from the Indus Valley civilization. In chapter number 4, we learned about the Varna system. When that Varna system came into place, when that social ladder came into place, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, when that social ladder came into effect, whole of the society saw a change. Then that went on thickening, that went on adding, right? And then we see lots of changes happening because of that social order which got changed, right? So social changes may take place due to cultural reasons, religious reasons, economic reasons, scientific, or technological factors. Now, one of that we have seen the cultural change, that is that social ladder. Now, then there is some change in the religious order also. For example, we had Hinduism right from the start, right? If we consider from the Aryan civilization, we had Hinduism, right? And from that same religion, Hindu religion, we had Sikhism, that is the Sikh religion, we had the Buddhist religion, we have the Jain religion, which came out of the Hindu religion. So that is a change in the religious order of the society. Lots of people got converted to the new religion, they adopted the new religion, and then the society saw a drastic change in itself, right? So that is the social change. Now, cultural change we have seen, religious change we have seen, economic change. When the Britishers came to India, before that, India was considered as Sone ki chiriya, right? We were that much rich, we were that much prosperous. Whole of the world came to us to do business with us. Then the Portuguese came, then the French came, then the Britishers came, the Spaniards came. So all of that brought a roundabout change, and from a rich and prosperous country, our country came to be known as the land of uh, beggars and snake charmers, right? From there, after the uh, Britishers left, again we had the economy in our hand, in the hand of our own people. The politics was in the hands of our own people. The leadership was our leadership. And then we again saw a social change in the terms of the economy of the country. Now, from where we got independence, 1947 till 2017, and today is 2020, we can see a drastic change happening in the economic sector, right? So same way, scientific changes. For example, the industrial change with the invention of the steam engine, whole of the scenario of the world changed. With the invention of computers, yes, and not the prototypes, but the sleek and beautiful laptops that we carry, or the desktop PCs that we have. Nowadays, TVs are also turned into monitors and screens, right? So, that is the scientific change that has happened, due to which the way of living of the society changed, the perspective of the people changed. Same way, technological factors, right? We used to travel in bullock carts, yes. Now we are traveling in bullet trains, right? So that way, the technological differences, the technological changes that happen over a period of time brings social change. Social change may include changes in social institutions, social behavior, or social relations, right? So, what are the effects of those social change? Now, what we are talking about, now it's a different topic, right? So, what are the social changes that happen, that we have seen? Yes, in sectors like, for example, technological, information, right? All those sectors, drastic change happened, and that brought lots of changes in the society, the people, the way the people lived. Now, because of those changes, what happens again? Because social changes happen, it may include changes in social institutions. Which are the social institutions? What are the political institutions? Changes happen over there also. Social behavior of the people change. Yes, earlier people strictly followed the social ladder, right, and caste system, etc. Nowadays, with the turn uh, in the scientific and technological world, and the way we have advanced, the more knowledge we have, the more literacy rate we have, we stopped believing in those things. So now we consider whole of the society as one without much differences among us. So that is the change in the social behavior. Earlier times, a person was called untouchable, and he was treated in that manner. But nowadays, because of the laws, etc., the social changes happen, that if you say untouchable to someone, police is going to catch you and put you into jail, and the court is going to give you a very strict punishment. And that is why the social behavior changed. Now everybody considers each and everyone equal, right? So a social behavior change is there, or social relations also. There are lots of changes happening. Yes, we are busy world today. We do not have time for each other because the hectic schedules that we have. That is a social change. That is a social behavioral change also, and that brings changes in the social relations also. When you think in terms of in earlier days, there was lots of discrimination happening, lots of differences happening, right? The wall was created, lots of wall was created between people, right? Now those walls are diminishing, and people consider each other equal, right? So there are some social relations changes also that we see. Owing to these factors, India has witnessed social change in social relations, family arrangement, marriage arrangement, culture, in lifestyle of people, literature, art, music, dance. Because of the social changes happening, then we see those social changes penetrating into different sectors and different fields of the life of the people. And that is why we see lots of changes happening in lots and lots of fields and lots of directions. For example, social changes will make changes in the social relationship, family arrangement. Earlier, there was a very good idea of joint family, right? Grandfather and all his brothers used to stay together, and that carried on to the father and all his brothers also used to stay in a one huge big family. Yes, the whole of the family tree was living at one place. But because we had a drastic change in the society, now the concept of joint family is becoming less and less attractive. And nuclear family, that means very small family, father, mother, one or two children, that type of concept is being taken as quite attractive rather than the joint family, because yeah, there is a price rise, right? And that much earning has also come down. So what happens is that we are not able to sustain such a lot of people in one family. So all the people, they live separately and they earn their meager earnings and try to survive. And for that purpose, the nuclear family concept becomes more attractive rather than the joint family concept. So family arrangement also changes, marriage arrangement also changes. Earlier it was very strict, right? And also child marriages happened and everybody accepted. Now because of the law, we cannot have child marriages. A girl below 18 years of age cannot get married. Same way a boy of below 21 years of age cannot get married. So restrictions are there, right? And the walls, they have dismantled. So what happens is intercaste marriages, religion marriages also start happening. So the concept and view change because of this change in the social change. Now arrangement culture also keeps on changing because more and more people get together, and now because of the quick transportation, etc., we can roam around to lots of new places. Other people can come to our place, so there is a mixture in culture. There is a mixture in culture of the western and the eastern side of the hemisphere, right? We get attracted towards the western culture, they get attracted to the eastern culture, and so we have quite a lot of mixture in the culture. Also in lifestyle of the people, lifestyle of the people have become expensive, right, and sophisticated, right, compared to the earlier days. Literature, lots of people started writing, so there you can see lots of changes in the literature also, art, music, dance, etc. Social change in India has also occurred due to westernization, globalization, and urbanization. We had our own culture, right? And the foreigners kept on coming to us and either living with us, either settling us over here, or either remaining in power. So we had an influence of the Western culture also, right? Britishers, French, so Portuguese, etc. So we had influence seeing them living over here in their standard of living, in their way of living, in their own culture. So we got influenced by that, and that made changes. Yes, after independence, we had lots of influence of the Western culture, plus globalization, etc., increased. His trade and transport increased, and so people went from here to the other foreign and Western countries, and people from there came over here. So we can see lots of changes happening due to the influence of westernization, globalization, and urbanization. Urbanization means the rural people, many of them living the rural areas and coming and settling themselves in the nearby towns and cities, thus increasing the population of the towns and cities. Because rural area, we know agriculture cannot feed whole of the family, so many people have to live and find work in cities and towns. So urbanization increases. They also, when they come over here, they need a place to live. They will build their own house. They need some business to go on, or need some jobs. So that is called urbanization. Because of that, lots of influence, lots of changes happen. Examples of social change that have taken place in India: Indians now prefer nuclear family rather than joint family. That we have already discussed. In the earlier concept was joint family. दादाजी उनके सब बच्चे, that means पापा और उनके चाचा सब एक साथ, चाचा चाची उनके बच्चे, cousins and all that, they all lived in one big house, right? Now the concept has changed from there, from the joint family to nuclear family. That means mother father, that is mother father and one or two children. That is a nuclear, really small family. Untouchability has been abolished using legal measure. That also we discussed. Yes, when the laws came into effect, that nobody can be called an untouchable, otherwise strictly punishable by the court, right? So untouchability slowly diminished, and then according to the constitution, according to the societal norms and structure, untouchability has totally been eradicated because of the strict norms. Intercaste marriages are on the rise. That also we discussed, right? One caste cannot marry a boy or a girl of another caste. So now those things are taking place, right? The parents have become liberal. They see the wishes and dreams of the children coming true when they allow the children to marry intercaste, or even if they got married, they don't have any objection. Yes, though you should be choosing your own life partner because it's your life. So the social change are happening because the parents view have changed. So intercaste marriages are on the rise. Preference for a male child has reduced. Nowadays we see that's a very good improvement that is happening in India. That everybody in the earlier time was more interested in having a boy child rather than a girl child. Girl child, though not considered a burden, but then also people wished for a boy child. But now that concept have totally changed. It is not only a one child system has come into place in the society, but that also irrespective whether that is a boy or a girl, even now one child only, whether that's a girl child, then also both the parents are happy and they don't want another child that is a boy. They are happy with the girl and they raise the girl and let the girl get married and go to the other family, but they will keep the girl child only. Yes, so that concept is changing very drastically, and that's a very good sign in India. Child labor is reducing, yes, because of the strict norms and conditions of the society, of the government, that 6 to 14 the child should be in the school, that is right to education, RTE, right. Now because of that, if the child is found outside employed by someone, then that person has used the child labor or forcefully made the child work, forcefully or not forcefully, but that child should be in the school rather than working somewhere else. So that person will be put into jail for doing child labor. So in that way, people are made aware. Examples are set in the society by heavily giving punishment to people who employ children in their business, etc. So in this way, awareness is increasing that we should not use child labor, right. Lots of international organization has also helped in that. They have banned many products in India which use child labor. So what happens is now people get discouraged and they don't take children, uh, forcing them to do labor for their work, and child labor is reducing. With advancement of technology today, physical objects, means of luxury, modern equipment, modes of entertainment, etc., have reached up to the rural area. Also, not only the urban area, but all the luxurious item, all the ease of living life has reached up to the rural area. We can find each and everyone there having mobiles, right, and lots of units that are working on the mobiles, right, and they're getting quite good education over there. Lots of computer labs are there in the village areas. Lots of experimental work is done over there, and the attitude, that means the attitude of the youth is changing from not not remaining uneducated only, not remaining educated, but also having a scientific view. So that helps in lots of inventions, lots of knowing more. All these things happen because we have because those things have reached the rural areas. Awareness about law and rights of citizen. This is a very, very important question. Each and every citizen should be aware of the laws and rights, right? First thing is all the citizens should be aware of their rights, so that if their rights are violated, they at least know that otherwise that is called ignorance. Yes, literacy helps in removing ignorance. So each and every citizen, why is it necessary for each and every citizen to know everything about law and rights? Every person should have information about basic laws and rights due to the following reasons. We should know, each and everybody should know all the rights that are given to them by the constitution, all the laws that are prevailing, so that it helps in becoming a good citizen and thus making our country better. So people well aware about the laws generally do not break them. Now, if you know that at the signal, traffic signal, when the light is red, that means you got to stop your vehicle. If you are aware about that law, then you will stop. If you are aware that you cannot break that law, until the light doesn't become green, you are not supposed to move ahead. If you are aware about that, then you are not going to break it. right? So if people are aware about the law, then they will generally not break it. This saves them from crime and hence from punishment, conviction, etc. When you jump the light, then the traffic police will stop you. Otherwise, if you have done your work, you have stopped when the light was red and you went ahead when the green light was there, the traffic police has no reason to stop you and give you a chit on a note for fine or punishment. So this saves you from getting some punishment, conviction in the court, etc. If people are exploited or denied of some basic rights, then they can approach the right person and channel to seek legal guidance against the justice. So this is where that ignorance comes into existence. If you don't know that this is your right and this right has been violated, right? If you know it, then you can approach. So 2 3 things are necessary. First thing is you should know your rights. You should know that your rights are being violated, and if you know these 2 things, then you should also know who or which is the proper channel to be followed so that you can get your rights back, or you can get, and or the person who has violated can be punished because your rights have been violated by him. So, if people are exploited or denied of some basic rights, then they can approach the proper authority, right person, or the proper channel to seek legal advice or guidance against the injustice. They can enjoy constitutional rights and protect individual interests, their own interest. They can be able to protect their own interest if they first, in the first place, they know that this is my right. So they can enjoy all the constitutional rights, right, for all the people in general, and as far as individual right interests are concerned. People can gain knowledge about various legal provisions made for their protection and prosperity, right? For example, we have the police system in place, we have the hospital system in place, right? So, in that way, for your protection, for your welfare, whatever things are given to you by the government, you should be having knowledge of that. So, people can gain knowledge if they don't have for various legal provisions. So, if your rights are violated, if some exploitation has been done, then there are laws for that and you can get legal protection, because the government, it's the government's duty to make laws and to protect the rights and interest of the people. So in order to become prosperous, in order to become or to be prosperous and protected, you should have proper knowledge of it. Their loyalty towards society, state and nation increases. If you are well educated, if you know all about your rights, if you know the proper channel through which nobody's rights are violated, or you can keep your personal interests safe and secure, then you are a law abiding citizen and the government protects you, then you become a good citizen and you'll become loyal to the society, that means the place where we live, the state in which you, that means the nation also, and for the whole of the country increases. People feel safe and motivated and hence contribute in the formation of the society. If all the whole of the society is continuously in fighting and in trying to take away each other's rights and interests, then there will be a chaos in the society and the society cannot progress. When can any society, you just consider these things, when can a society progress? When there is peace and prosperity. When does that peace and prosperity comes? When there is proper law and order in the, and when the individual becomes free to enjoy his rights and to enjoy or to work in his own manner. So all these things can be achieved if people feel safe and motivated, and so then they can contribute towards the economy, towards the culture, towards the education, or towards the formation of a very good society. If everybody has proper knowledge of laws, they can go lead a very good life of esteem and pride. They can feel proud about themselves, they can feel proud about their state, about their society, right? About that country. Thus, it is essential to have knowledge and understanding. Because of all these reasons, it becomes very necessary to gain knowledge and have proper understanding of laws. Now, Very, very important. These things you might have studied in the lower standards, but now you are doing it again, and this is the star mark that I give. Fundamental rights of the citizens. These have explicitly been explained to you in the lower standards, starting from 6th standard, 7th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard. These rights have been told to you. Now, these are the fundamental rights of the citizens as written in the Constitution. These are the 6 basic rights given to the people of India. First thing is right to equality. Next is right to freedom. Third is right against exploitation. Next is right to religious freedom. Next is cultural and educational rights. And the last one is very, very important, right to constitutional remedies. Now, in the previous standard also, lots and lots have been told about if just the previous standard, that is standard 9, you have learned these rights in detail, right? So we know about these rights, and you should at least be able to list it down. Yes, mug it up and keep that in mind, memorize them, and you should be able to write all the 6 rights, basic rights, fundamental rights, right? Last one, we said again, the star mark goes over here also. Right to constitutional remedies is the soul of the Constitution. Whole of the Constitution is a thick, thick, fat book. But we have a huge body, but our heart is not bigger than the feast. Same way, elephant, quite big animal, yes, but the soul. So what is the soul of the Constitution? What is the basis of the Constitution? It is the right to constitutional remedies. Yes, that means 6 rights have been given to you. Out of them, the 5 rights. Yes, the 5 rights: equality, freedom, against exploitation, religious freedom, education, and cultural rights. These rights you can enjoy, but what happens if these rights are exploited? What happens if we want to make some changes in it, right? So their constitutional remedies come to help. Right to constitutional remedy is not just a special right to the fundamental rights, but also a very special feature of the Constitution. This right empowers a citizen to, if your rights are violated, then you can go to the court. Which right allows you to do that? It is the 6th right, right to constitutional remedies. If any right is violated, then this right empowers the citizen to go to the court in case he is deprived of any of his fundamental rights. If you are deprived of any fundamental rights, if your rights are violated, then this right gives you opportunity to go to the court and get justice, right? To get back your fundamental right. The court ensures complete protection to the citizens by listening to their complaints and taking proper action. So it is not about one people, one person. Yes, it is the society in general, right? Lots of legal framework help in protecting your rights. Yes, if your individual right, fundamental right has been taken away, then you have the access of the court. The court is there to listen to you and give a proper verdict so that justice is given to you and your right is given back to you. Or those who have defaulted on it, or those who have violated your rights, can be punished by the court of law. But the first thing is, the court will listen to you, because when your rights are taken away, nobody listens to you except the court. The court sees that your rights are again restored. So the court ensures complete protection to the citizens by listening to their complaints and taking proper action. Now, we just have this pandemic scenario here where you must have read in the newspaper that the High Court, it has taken stern steps. It has scolded the state government. The Supreme Court has bashed the central government for not giving the uh, proper care to the people in this pandemic, right? So, in this way, even when you don't go to the court, it becomes the duty of the court with the help of this right that it sees that your rights are not violated, right? So that you are protected. So this last right, that is right right to constitutional remedy, is very very helpful. Since a citizen can fight for any right that is deprived through the right of constitutional remedies, this right is known as the soul of the constitution. The citizen can fight for his right because the last right is given to you, that is the uh, constitutional remedy, right to constitutional remedy. With the help of the sixth right, you can maintain the remaining rights and get proper justice. Now, rights of a child. You are still the child, yes, compared, because you're going to school still, you are dependent, you're still dependent on your parents, yes, and the parents will always consider you a child even when you have grown of age. But we are talking about children who cannot take their own decision. Children who are not so physically and mentally strong. Yes, because they are just children, right? So, child development is a precondition for economic development, child development, right? If a child is tutored good, well mannered, a good becomes a good citizen in the society, right? But on the contrary, if the child has been born and brought up in quite an evil or not so good society, then his mentality when he grows up remains the same and he behaves in the same way in the society, the way he has been brought up. So, rights of the child should be protected. Children development is a precondition for economic development. When can economic development happen? When the children are well brought up and the development of the child happens and the child becomes a very good person in the society, helps the society and helps the economy and helps the country. So although children are the future assets of the nation, they are the least protected ones in our society. Future, right? Children are the future of the country. After 20 years, they are going to be the young people of the society. They are going to show the world what their country is. So children are considered to be an asset of the society. But the children, the very children, they are the least protected ones in our society. Progress of any nation depends on the overall development of its children. The more the children are better, so their youth will also be good and the country can shine if the youth is good. So, progress of any nation depends on the overall development of the children. If the nation provides proper facilities and environment for good education, health, proper food, shelter, then the children on growing will become well educated, responsible citizens. For this, I would like to quote the example of many of the African nations that still exist. Right? These things are not provided by the government, and we can see that still very, very less development has happened in these countries. Why? Because children are not given proper facilities and environment for good education, right? Their parents, they didn't know anything what a school is. Yes, you have to go to school, that the parents didn't know. Their grandparents also did not know. So they were not able to pass it on to their children. they lived in that Adivasi environment, that is the tribal environment, far away, cut off from any um, normal society, where there was no food, any provisions for food, water, electricity, education, hygiene, medicine. Nothing was there, so they didn't develop. These things should have been given by the government. But the governments in those countries were least bothered about that, right? So they didn't give proper education to their masses, and that is why even after 50, 60 years, when we got independence in 1947, whatever their state was, from there to today, there has not been much development over there. The world took care of them by going over there, providing them food, providing them education. Then there was some small change happening over there, right? So in this way, the nation provides proper facilities, environment, that is good education, health, proper food, shelter. Then the children on growing will become good citizens and well-educated, responsible citizens. They will then in turn contribute in the development of family, society, and nation. You think in terms of today. If you go into the rural areas, if the schools were not established over there, then what would have happened? Whole of the rural area would have remain totally uneducated, illiterate, and they could not develop. But because schools were opened up, it was compulsory for the parents to send their children to school. If they didn't have money, then the government gave free education to them, so that they will send the children to school. Then also they were not sending, so the government went on to give the midday meal. That means once every day they will get good food in school, because the parents are not able to give them food. So they started sending the children to school so that they can get food, and they got education for free. So in this way, our government reached the people, right? Reached the people and invited them to send their children to school, right? For whatever reasons. You don't have money, you don't have to give us money. We will give education for free. We will give you books, we will give you bags, shoes, uniform, whatever. You just send your children to school. Then also you're not sending, okay, we'll give them food, right? So parents started, and now we can see that change that is happening over there. Most of the population now in the rural areas, they are a little whatever, they are educated, right? And they can use their education in many different ways today. So they will then in turn contribute in the development of family, society, and thus the nation. It's the duty of every citizen to see that children of our country are physically healthy and able. So each and every citizen should look after, and we should see that the children are physically fit and able, mentally cheerful. They should be happy, and their mental abilities are properly developed. Moreover, it is also moral duty of the government to take care about the childhood and good life of the children of the nation. That, of course, it is that moral duty. It is what the government is for, right? So the government is doing the work, but are we doing the work? Yes, lots and lots of people, right? There are lots of NGOs working. There are lots of people interested in the social work. Yes, you see the youngsters going to the college. They go to these railway colonies, people living on the tracks in the suburban areas. Yes, outside, right? And the slum areas. People just go over there. The school, college girls, boys, they just go over there and gather some children and play games with them. Yes, give them bats and balls and badminton rackets and all that. Give them books and ask them to sit over here. You will get this cricket bat. If today we'll have a 2-hour class. So for getting that bat, these children are going to study. So it becomes the duty of each and every citizen, and people do it, right? People do it. Yeah, you are yet now studying, so you are bothered by that thing, so you don't visit the outside world and look at those things. But once when you reach college, yes, when you have a little bit of that is when your brain starts developing fully, and you become aware of the society, that you are in the society and a very important member of the society. And these are all the moral duties that belongs to the youth more, because that is when they have time and that energy. And enthusiasm to do something good for the society. So people just go out wherever possible, yes, in Adivasi areas, in rural areas, in the slum areas, the areas usually that the poor children live, the deprived live, right? And they do go over there and do the social work, and it gives them immense joy and happiness, and they contribute towards the nation in that way. Now we come to the juvenile rights. Which juvenile rights are included in Indian Constitution? Already star mark is that. This is quite important. Now, what is juvenile? Juvenile means now. Suppose a thief. He is doing some thieving work and is caught by the police, and he is produced in the court. Right? The court first sees that he is an adult or age below an adult. Adult means 18 years of age. If he is 18 years of age, then the punishment given by the court, yes, not the fine, that means 500,000 rupees fine, we are not talking about that, but rigorous punishment in prison. He is treated as a criminal for doing wrong to the society and is punished for 6 months of jail for doing the stealing or thieving job. Right? Accepted. 18 years of age, he is physically, mentally fit to take that punishment. But below 18 years, right, is called juvenile. The age is still not matured. Yes, the mentality of a child, it changes, right, if he is labeled a criminal even before he becomes an adult. Yes, suppose a young boy of say 13, 14 years, he's very hungry, but he's very poor. He doesn't have one paisa in his pocket, and he's very, very hungry. And he sees some pav bhaji wala, and he goes over there and steals 1 or 2 pav and run away, or a packet of pav and run away. Then people will catch him. They will hand him over to the police. Yes. Now, what is the police going to do? Has the child committed any crime? Absolutely not. He is hungry and he just wants to satisfy his hunger. We come down to the age of 8 years, not 14 years, 8 years. He's all alone in the world. Yes, he's an orphan and doesn't have any person to depend on. He's very, very poor, living his rags, not bathed for 1 week. He's hungry and he steals. Is that his fault? No, it is the fault of the society. The society has not taken care of him. Right? So it is not the child's fault. So, juvenile crimes done by anybody who is still yet not an adult comes under the category of juvenile, or what we say as minor. Right? So, for one word, that explanation was there so that we know what we are talking. Which juvenile rights are included in the Indian Constitution? In 1992, the United Nations declared the juvenile rights, that is, rights for the children. Juvenile rights. What is the meaning of juvenile rights? Rights of the children are known as juvenile rights. Please bear that in mind. And in its Charter of Rights, Charter Agreement. What is the meaning of Charter Agreement? Yes, that means whole of the world, all the countries agree. And you have to agree because you are member nation of the UN. So, Charter of Rights, whole charter, the agreement done, whatever we have agreed upon, with an objective too. Now, in 1992, they wrote the Charter of the Rights of Children, and the objective to protect the children and take care of the development and welfare. India has adopted these Charter of Rights. Yes, taken some of it, made some of the own, because now India physiographically, geographically, is separate from the rest of the world, right? So we have our own culture, tradition. So some of the rights we made our own. Plus we also included the Charter of Rights that are in the UN. India has adopted these human rights and has placed them in the constitution so that we can have a proper law and rules and regulations for it, right? If it is in the constitution, then we can have a law on it, and that is how we can protect the citizens, the children. So we'll stop over here for the day. Thank you, students.